All right, so I'm going to ask all these speakers to come up here on stage. I know you weren't expecting that. That's unrehearsed, unprepared, last minute thing. I hope you guys enjoy the lightning talks, right? As I said, for me, it is usually like the most inspiring part of the conference, and you had the best host you could ever want, right? But let's first start. Come on down. We need to get all of them on stage. It's a big stage. Phil told me it had enough space for all of you. There we go. Awesome. Let's first start by giving them a round of applause. Thank you. All right, I need a volunteer to help me throw this box around here because we have some time. I think we have about 20 minutes for some questions. So you want to, I don't know, get that? We'll throw it at you. I'm not responsible for anyone who gets hit by this box every time. Yeah, he's going to throw it.
Who wants it?
Right here. Oh, boy, yeah.
He's not ready.
Oh, no. Okay. I thought you wanted to ask a question. You just want to throw it?
You wanted me to throw the
Oh, no, I want you to throw the box. We got it. All right,
I do have a question, actually.
All right, that's good.
On the topic of creativity, I almost wonder, it's like the more extreme creativity I go, the more bugs I find. Does anyone else agree? Okay.
All right. Questions?
Can I respond?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a stick. You have a box. I have a stick. Yeah, I think the more creative we can get in our testing, the more defects that we will find. One thing that we have to be conscientious of, though, is business value. Because and figuring out what is quality and what is of value to whomever is going to be consuming what you learn from your testing. Because I can be creative and come up with probably 1,000 test cases for one little input field, but is that the best use of my time? So I think as testers, it's kind of difficult sometimes because we've got that dichotomy of, like, I'm a tester, I want to be curious, I want to explore, I could spend all day looking at this. But really, I also have to keep that in mind and kind of keep myself in check. Do you want to know?
Sure. Absolutely, and I think creativity gone wild is using your superpowers for bad sometimes. So when I first started in testing, I came up with Dawn's Rule of 3. Anything that I was going to test deserved positive, negative, and crazy tests. So crazy tests are pretty much stress tests, but they were the ones that I liked, and I did a lot of them, and I found a lot of bugs. Here's what I also found. I found a lot of bugs that nobody wanted to fix, damn it. And that irritated me and just made me think that they were wrong. So I didn't get the clue by 4 of maybe you're testing the wrong thing. So here's where creativity really matters. Listen, be vulnerable enough to get the message that maybe we need to be creative in other places as well. So maybe that test isn't as interesting today as another one could be. So have the conversation about where's the value proposition and get all creative on that.
May I ask one more?
Yeah, of course.
So I was
You have the power.
Was anyone told that when you start QA, you have to disconnect emotions? So you spend this hour, 2 hours chasing a bug, and you write it, and then you go to triage the next morning, and they're like, will not fix. Like, you didn't even read it. They didn't even read it. So I disagree with that statement because I try to be creative. I can't separate the emotion, and every time I get those, I guess we can swear now, those damn tickets, close, will not fix, and and I literally spent 30 minutes writing that up. I disagree with that. I think emotion invokes creativity.
Anybody else feel that way? I think emotion, yeah. I think emotion taps into your authenticity. Your authenticity is about your truth, right? So if you care, then I think you care enough to be emotional, and I think that's valid. Here's the rub, though. If somebody else is not equally passionate about that thing, maybe you need to realign what you're looking at, what you're looking for, how you're valuing that thing. So maybe a conversation where you can just say, why? You're crushing me, man. I really cared about that bug. And you just went, boom. That meant nothing. ugh, I hate that. So tell me now what is more interesting. So if we can provoke that conversation and realize that for the most part, neither us as testers nor developers really, for the most part, get to decide what is a bug and what is not, what is quality, what is not. It's the business and or the customer or the end user. So if I can defer out to that, I can find where my truth is and my emotions align with that.
Cool. Some more questions? There we go. Oh my goodness. All right.
Oh, it's cushy. I had a question about machine learning. I have a vision in my mind of the growth of the test discipline being essentially humans being managers of machine learning algorithms. And I kind of think of that as like those machine learning algorithms are like the ultimate of people on the spectrum. And I kind of wanted to say, is there one way that I'm right, and is there one way that I'm wrong? Am I seeing the future? Is that true? In which case we all have to get better at managing people on the spectrum? Or am I completely wrong?
Jason talks a lot about this as testers as machine learning experts.
Yeah, run it. Yeah.
I didn't have a microphone. So, yeah, what she said. No, I think you're exactly right. I think that every tester will end up being like a test lead, but you'll have, a fleet of some humans, but you have a fleet of machines that do your bidding, right? And you instill that empathy. You basically control the machines, you manage them, you're teaching them the empathy, you're teaching them what you want them to do, then they go do it for you, right? Just like a manager. So I think you're exactly right. No, literally.
In my world, that's the other way around. But
Yeah, I like to disagree.
Yeah.
I like to disagree with Jason on what he says all the time, but unfortunately, he's usually right. But yeah, like I think as we start to talk about this future of machine learning, and one of the things we have to do as humans is to really decide where we need to fit in, especially as a testing community and a quality-minded community, in the solution, because this technology is coming. Like it's just rolling at us, right? And as it rolls at us, it's bringing a lot of power, right, and a lot of volume. And how do we actually get ready for that? Is one of the things that I think, especially within this community, that it'll play a key role in determining whether or not this stuff takes over or if we actually have control over it. So, when you sleep at night or you not sleep at night, just think about the machines and what's coming.
No, I want to add, like Diani said, it's a really good point, is not what Tariq said, but what Diani said, is that these machines are very difficult to wrangle today, right? And even Angie talked about how they can get confused. And if you look at that, it's really a management job. You're looking at the output, giving feedback, kind of guiding it, and then when it kind of gets to a level of competence, you let it go on its own, you trust it more on its own. But like Diani said, it's a bunch of wrangling. It's a difficult problem to control these bots today. But they'll get easier and easier over time as the tooling gets better and we get more experienced. And Diani has something to say, but I already.
You're waiting with a question.
So I'll make it really quick. Just one more thing to add there. So I think, yes, absolutely. I think we're going to get to the point where we are going to have to become orchestrators of the AI and the machine learning, and we're going to have to help it along. At some point, it's going to get really good, right? And that's, I think, later on today, I'm going to be talking a lot more about this, but at some point, it's going to get really good, and we're going to have to shift our own testing strategy because of the fact that AI is actually everywhere. AI is coming up everywhere. So we're going to have to develop even additional testing strategy for how we're going to test AI itself, right? So that's really the evolution of the tester in my mind.
Cool.
So actually, I had something, oh wow, that is really close to my face, that was about creativity and emotion. And I just wanted to briefly touch back on that. Early on in my career, I was also really affected by people not caring about my bugs. But at some point, my perspective also changed, and also I'm a manager now, so maybe that's part of it. but my perspective changed about that because while I was super creative, my perspective was always that you should fix my bugs because I found them. But really what I didn't realize was that it's more about understanding where your testing fits into the business and what the priorities of the business are. And so what you're really doing in finding bugs is saying, this is what I've found, and do you care about it right now? Or do you not care about fixing it right now? And so if you can change your perspective to be, can I recommend something as a solution rather than I reported this, so you should fix it, right? You can make a case based on the business value. And maybe you can find some comfort in saying, I made a good case, even if they decided not to fix it.
Thank you. It's, I think, very good addition. I would also like to make 2 additions to the creativity thing. Not all testing is creative-based testing. 40 plus 2 is 42, whatever you want. But that testing can be automated easily. But the creative part of it cannot be automated. So we as humans will have to become more creative in our testing or become more better test automators. So we always will have these 2 parts. So we have to develop our creativity skills. And I have to look at Phil for this, but I did this this webinar for PNSQC about how to enhance, how to become more creative as a tester. Is this webinar still available? It is, yeah. So for I've got no idea. If you want to know where, go to Phil, not to me. But there's this webinar with 10 tips how to enhance your creativity skills. So maybe that could be useful for you.
Cool.
Nice.
Question over here. Where's the box?
Where's the box?
Oh yeah, she has the box. Sorry. Then we'll get you.
I have 2 questions. So first one is regarding your career. When do you know you need to progress in your career or you deserve a promotion? And when is the right time to ask or discuss about you have to progress in your career and ask your manager for a promotion? And my second question is regarding test data. There is a lot of trend going on about using mock data instead of doing end-to-end testers between microservices. What is your take on it? Is it a best way to use a mock data, or is it good to use end-to-end testing and test the entire data? So those are 2 questions I have.
I will take the first one. So when you should be asking for promotion. So I've always considered the promotion conversation highly collaborative, but it should be driven by the individual that's seeking the promotion. I mean, good managers should be able to seek out and help guide and get them into that position. There's not really a great equation to say, okay, if you've met this criteria, then you should be promotion, because companies are all very, very different. Bigger companies tend to have, set recurrences on when promotions are, especially like federal government, agencies like that. Smaller companies, there may never be a promotion cycle, or it may be very, very few and far between. I think the way to look at it is, as long as you're moving, and you are able to, and you've got the data to drive that. So, for example, as I mentioned, one of the pivotal points in my career was establishing my TAPs, the trusted advisors and partners, because I had a very skewed understanding of where I should be. One of the best conversations was, I was very honest about what I was making and from a salary, and having that conversation with a couple of people where I was talking about what my compensation package was. They were like, you are underpaid. And I had no idea, because I looked at what I was making. I thought, hey, I'm making an okay salary. This is what wound up happening is, by having that conversation with others outside of the company who are not speaking on behalf of the interests of the company only, you get a much better perspective on where you are, what they've seen outside in the landscape, and that just provides you more data, so that when you want to have that conversation with your manager about a promotion, you have more data to arm you with versus sitting back and not being the driver in that conversation. So those are my 2 biggest keys of advice around that is get those taps, make sure that what you think you should be being paid actually aligns with the market.
So, a good friend of mine runs a workshop, or she's run workshops where she does vision boards, and I highly recommend researching vision boards and coming up with a plan. Even if it's what I want to be doing in a year. She likes to say, if you're going to a 5-year reunion and somebody asks you, what are you doing? What your answer would be. So that's one thing I always recommend people is, you can't ask for a promotion if you don't know where you're going. So make sure you know where you're going. And then I, as a leader, I love it when people tell me where they're going then too. So a lot of people have asked me, well, I'm scared to talk to my manager about it. I, as a hiring manager, my goal is to replace me because I'm not going to be a manager forever. I have my own vision board. I have my own dreams of where I want to go. So I'm always looking for and I'm trying to identify people that I want to help build up and mentor and bring up to replace me. So I love it when people help me with that by saying, I want to eventually replace you. So don't be afraid.
All right. So I'll help the. Oh, sorry. You about to?
Yeah, I got the box. All right.
Go ahead.
Many companies have like ladders, and you might not know about it. So it's it's not part of our day-to-day job. But like over in HR, there may be these different criteria that you need to meet to go to the next level. So what I usually do is, even if that's not exposed, like if I think I might be ready or maybe I'm not even ready, but I want to start the conversation, go to your manager and say, hey, can we talk about what's needed for me to get to the next level? And that way you come up, even if there isn't one provided by HR, you and the manager can collaborate and come up with, okay, here are the things that you would need to do or be to get to the next level, right? And based on that, now you have a checklist of things that you can go do. And if they know about this, they'll help you, hopefully, if not leave, help you find opportunities to do those things. So some of them, like, for example, it might be, mentor someone. And maybe you're the most junior person. You're like, well, who do I mentor? And you have this discussion and find opportunities. Oh, we have interns coming in. Maybe we'll assign some to you so that you can mentor them for the summer and get that check mark there. Check box. So that's a great way because you have it written down. It's not something that's based on perception. We can discuss this. Hey, I believe that I met this criteria. What do you think? Yeah, you did. Okay, check mark. And then you work your way towards it.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to answer your second question real quick, and then we're going to take one last question because I know you had the box. But in terms of microservices and mocking and whether or not to use mocks and which way is the better way, yeah. The first thing is that you have to recognize that a holistic testing strategy requires us to make sure that we have different levels of testing covered throughout, right? There's no right and there's no wrong, right? There's when you buy a car, there's been individual testing on individual parts and there's diagnostics to do that, but someone has sat down and driven that car from an end to end. It's no different with software. We have to remember that once we mock out some aspect of the real world, it is just that. It is not the final product, right? And so even though it gives us quicker feedback, it's very focused in its scope. And there's a different purpose there, right? And so we want to build software in that modular manner, but we also want to do end-to-end testing. So how do you kind of build up the right levels? And as Andrew was saying, we have Test Automation University. There's a course on there on unit testing, testing from the inside. She's been pressuring me to do a microservices testing course, so I'm going to get my act together and do that as well.
He teaches the course.
Yeah, I teach the course.
How much is it, Terry?
It's free. It's a great price. Yeah. And actually, all the courses there are free, so I'll big up Angie for that and ApplyTools for putting that together. There's no excuse to not have that kind of training. So check those out and look for more. Let's get our last question in, and then we'll.
Yeah, mine's not a question, I'm afraid. So I'll pass this on to somebody else. I just want to make a comment that the bugs that I find, I don't consider those my bugs. They're our bugs, right? I mean, I don't own that bug, for heaven's sakes. So I'm going to pass this to somebody who might have a question.
That's a good way to end it. I don't think you need to pass that to anyone else. All right. Thanks a lot. Phil, I don't know if you want to say something. I saw you standing up
I
here.
just wanted to say thank you, Tariq, and putting together the
sure.
lightning talks has been awesome. And Jan Yap, you mentioned the webinar about the creativity, and actually in the webinar, Jan Yap refers to a book. It's called A Whole New Mind, and I read the book after the webinar, and it was fantastic. So it's on our YouTube channel, the webinar. So feel free to go there and watch it and follow us, and have a great lunch.
All right. Thank you.